Hello and good day to all of you. I hope that you're safe in your homes right now. And again, I apologize for not being with you synchronously online today because I have an important appointment, not only today but until Wednesday. So today I'll be providing to you a recording of our supposed topic for this day, this morning, and that is on landslides and sinkholes. Now let us begin with the latest on landslides. So first, of course, I think you know about this. This happened um, l- recently last year, the typhoon Nalye, which made five landfalls here in the Philippines last October 29th, and it killed quite a 53 people across the country, including at least 61 who died in floods and landslides on the southern island of Mindanao, and that specifically would be in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, right by the south of island. So, at the end of this travesty, after inspecting the damage out the storm, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. or President Bongbong Marcos blamed deforestation, like the main reason why this happened in the first place, and climate change for the massive scale of the disaster, and called on flood control plans to include tree planting. So that is why it is always important. Always important that you still in minds how vegetation and tree planting and maintaining our flora and fauna is very important because it could lead to disasters like this one. And when it comes to sinkholes, recent reports just this January, it became quite a huge thing. But actually, the sinkholes that are now appearing in Boracay, which like a lot of them, about 789 of them, have already been detected years ago, way back in 2018. So from 789 back in 2018, it has now increased to 815, found in three different barangays in Boracay. And remember, Boracay is a very small island. It's a very small island. So you can just only imagine that with all of these sinkholes, with these with this some number of sinkholes, no, it's quite detrimental to the tourists there, and not only to the tourists but most to the residents there, because if these sinkholes increase in number and eventually collapse, um, these people live, no? The Mines and Geosciences Bureau of the DENR has warned the possible risks to infrastructure on the resort island. So, in line with this warning, the DNR I'm sorry, MGB, sorry about that, is calling for the strict enforcement of the visitor carrying capacity of the island. So, up for about 6,000, only 6,000 people at a time. So, and in addition to that, further development of commercial establishments and infrastructure on the island will also be much, much more closely regulated. So, if you have been to Boracay or if you have plans of going to Boracay, you will really witness, or you may have witnessed, how all of these infrastructures are kind of dikit-dikit na, no? There's very little space between buildings and it is so congested, so congested. Now, let us begin with landslides. Now, landslides are basically the downward movement of soil, rocks, and earth materials along a slope. And I think you know about this because we have also witnessed this not only here in Cagayan de Oro, but most of the time in Bukidnon. There are a lot of these. There are a lot of incidences of this phenomenon happening in Bukidnon exclusively in a year. This can be triggered by certain geological conditions and hazards such as typhoons, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. And when it comes to earthquakes, no, earthquakes actually loosen the soil because the earth will shake. And of course, our soil is not really the layers of it's not really 100% solid. There are sediments there are loose sediments, there's groundwater and all that. So it will loosen the soil and cause cracks on the rocks that will eventually fall off. Now this picture right here that you can see on the slide, this is actually um, a landslide, an aftermath of an earthquake that happened in our city way back in 2022 last year, July. And the shaking of the ground and the rolling of pyroclastic materials and lahar caused land surface to erode and move downward. Now, this is in the case of like volcanic eruptions, no? And I think you know what lahar is. If you remember, lahar is a mixture of volcanic ash and mud with water. So it's a very viscous and very, how do I say it? It's not really good for the soil, and at the same time it causes the weakening of the soil underneath. So that is your volcanic eruptions causing landslides. Now of course there are human actions that contribute to landslides or contribute to the high incidence of landslides, like for example mining, deforestation, no, deforestation, because you're actually removing trees from high altitudes. And if you remove the trees, you also remove the roots, right? And these roots are very important in holding these soil materials. So without these roots, the soil material will just be on its own. And when landslide happens, there's not enough like support from these tree roots. So deforestation really is one of the major causes of landslides. And another is the construction of houses and buildings adversely, which would adversely affect, sorry, the land surface. So it is also very important that we take note of the number of infrastructures, the number of people living in these high altitudes. Like for example, there is a danger in high urbanization in places like Baguio. No, if you have seen TikToks and videos, YouTube videos of glorifying and how do I say it, romanticizing Baguio City. If you're gonna go there in person, you will see how overpopulated it is, how crowded it is. So there's a lot of buildings and a lot of people. So once you see it, there's actually a danger to these people living in these high altitudes, no? And they have houses. So these add up to the weight that these high altitude soils can withstand. So maybe in the future, with um typhoons, with the higher frequency of typhoons and all that, there would be like a higher probability that landslides would be more prominent, will become more prominent in cities like high urbanized cities in high altitudes like Baguio City. Now the Mines and Geosciences Bureau of DENR is actually the agency concerned with land movement. So anything to do with land movement, earthquakes, landslides, sinkholes, and all that, this is the agency that we go to. Now let's go to the landslides. Landslides. So first we have creep. Now creep is really, really slow. So it is the imperceptibly slow, steady downward movement of slope forming soil or rock. The movement is caused by stress. So it is stress over time. Okay. It is stress over time. Shear stress sufficient to produce permanent deformation, but too small to produce shear failure. So it's really, really slow. It would take not only weeks, not only months, but it would take years for this to be more obvious to the naked eye or to our eyes. Creep is indicated by curved tree trunks. If you notice this one right here, if you notice that, how curved these tree trunks are, because they're trying to like compensate for the slowly creeping soil. So you would see that bent fences just like this one right here, or retaining walls, tilted poles or fences, which makes sense, right? And small soil ripples or ridges. You can actually see that if you're going to zoom in here. Let's try to zoom in, okay? If you try to see it here, you will see that there is soil deformation. You can actually see how the soil is going downwards. All right. The next type is slump. It occurs when a coherent mass of loosely consolidated or rock layers moves a short distance down a slope. So it's like a mass of soil na nikalit siya og collapse, right? So collapse siya and move din siya down a slope. But the collapse is not really so devastating. It's not, how do I say, it's not really that dramatic if you think about it. It's really like a very soft collapse and a downward slope. Okay, so that is slump. Next is rockfall. Now this is quite violent and this is quite volatile in a way, because when you're going rockfall, this is the free falling movement of massive rocks from a cliff or steep slope. So it is a type of fall. No, so alongside alongside what do you call this? Alongside uh the soil, there will also be rocks, and that is a huge possibility that will happen when there's landslide. Next, we have the flows, and one of them is debris flow. Now, you know what debris is, right? So, debris is basically kanang, sa Bisaya pa, it's like labit-labit or kanang mga other stuff, if you know what I mean. So, it is a form of rapid mass movement in which a combination of loose soil, rock, matter, and water mobilize as a slurry that flows downslope. What do you mean by slurry? Think of slurry as your the ones that you can the ones that you can buy at 7-Eleven. The how do I don't know what that's called now, but the sort of was a shake. So it's really a slurry. Just think of it that way. It's quite viscous. It flows in a slow motion, in a slow speed. So these are commonly caused by intense surface water flow due to heavy precipitation or rapid melt that erodes and mobilizes loose soil or rock on steep slopes. So hinay kaayo siya, no? So that's the flow. And again, ang koan, usually it is being caused by a mixture of water. So it would usually happen, or it's its precedent would be rain or heavy rain. Okay. And another type of flow is mud flow. Now, mud flow is the mass movement characterized by a flowing mass of mud along the flank of a volcano. Very specific to that. This is what causes lahar. Basically, this is where lahar originates from. So, kana siya that mud flow, actually do not underestimate that, because you can get caught on that. So that is, or those types of landslides. Now, if you're going to look at this map right here, I'm going to look at the other side. If you're going to look at map right here, I'm sorry. Where's my mouse? I cannot find my mouse. Where's my mouse? Oh, here it is. We're going to zoom in just a little bit. So this map actually tells us the flood susceptibility and the landslide susceptibility of some areas here in the Philippines. Now, if you notice, if you're going to, we're going to um, zoom in here, okay? Now, usually, not usually, but we know that these really heavy rain these typhoons, they come from the Pacific Ocean. So they come from the east. And then they, because of the wind patterns, wounds, no, they go westward towards the Philippines. So usually the places that would be affected by landslides and all that would be the places in Visayas, really. Like the places that you would hear on the news. Samar, the provinces, I mean, Samar, Leyte, sometimes Cebu, sometimes Bohol, and all those places. And I like to say that we're used to that, but not really. We're not really that used to that. But I guess the way that we look on it, the way look upon it, it's we're quite resilient in a way that we don't really like we cry over these things, but we don't really dwell on severity and on the level of sadness that it brings. No, so dara dapita mo na siya ang agianan sa imuhang typhoons, and at the same time, this is where landslides usually happen. Oh, very common. Okay, now how do we prepare for landslides? So you know that a landslide is about to happen when number one, there's the leaning of door jambs and windows, because that's already a sign that the soil is going downward, so it's toppling your door jambs, your walls, and all that. And then cracks in concrete floors and windows, open spaces between walls and between stairs, cracks in roads which gradually increase in size, alignment or snapping of buried pipes. So there's already an interruption in the piping under your house, or maybe even the pipings that are found in the walls of your homes, because there's already a disturbance on the soil. And then bulges on the ground at foot slopes, springs or seepages. So kanang springs, it means na redirection na ang tubig. The flow of water has been redirected. So that is already a sign that there's landslide that's about to happen. And leaning trees, poles, and retaining walls, rumbling sound which may increasingly become louder. Now, how do we mitigate landslides? Because we know, or it's really easy to see um, the places that are the places in your locality that are most susceptible to landslides. So these are some ways that our local government agency would do so that we can prevent these. Like for example, um, as a whole, have engineering intervention or for slow protection measures. No, another is your retaining wall. Now, retaining wall like this one right here. You can see this in Uptown when you go up from lower Balulang to upper Balulang. Yeah, you can actually see that there's a retaining wall, and then you also have gabion walls. Oh my goodness! Wait a minute, gabion walls. They sort of like put a screen there, not only a screen, but screen is a very simple word, but it's a metal screen that actually helps in retaining that soil and rock. And then you have your shotcretes, and of course, oh, I'm sorry, this is the shotcrete right here, and this is the gabion wall right here. And then you have, of course, very important, Jude. If you're going to if you plan to do farming on the slopes of the mountains, it is very important that you have proper irrigation and also proper planning of that, because if you're just going to plant like straight up here, it won't the soil won't be able to support so much of it, the vegetation not so much as well. So it is very important that you plan it like terraces. That is why terraces are built that way, so that landslides would not happen frequently in that area. And then lastly, of course, it is very important that we have proper drainage, just like this. Important na siya. So what are we going to do before, during, and after a landslide. Okay, so of course it is very important that before anything else, before landslides would happen, know you have to know if your area, the area that you're living in, the area that you're working in, the area that you are studying in, or the area that you're most frequently at is landslide prone, or it has landslide hazards. So you have to consult landslide hazard map. So I've already provided you with that, with the slide earlier, and also in your PDF file. And of course, if you are at risk, if you live near these slopes that are most vulnerable to landslides, it's very important that you know the signs. You know the signs of an impending landslide. And of course, very important, because these landslides usually occur right after preceding event, like a typhoon, like a volcanic eruption. You have to monitor the daily weather condition. So if it is raining continuously for a very long time in your area, for many hours already, for many days, you have to evacuate as soon as possible. You have to go to higher ground if that would be possible. Know the location of your evacuation centers and escape routes, and of course, most importantly, get involved with the disaster risk management programs of your barangay, or listen to the authorities. That's the most important thing. Okay, if it is during the landslide, while the landslide is happening, when in doubt, you are going to stay inside and hide under a sturdy and stable object like a table. If too late, like you can hear the rumble, wala na jud kay choice, no? So wala na. So you just have to protect yourself. If of course, it is very important that you stay away from the path of the landslide. It would be kind of crazy if you go towards it, right? Go to the nearest higher ground away from the landslide, or run towards the direction of the back of trees or buildings when you see approaching rock and soil debris. Protect yourself. If it seems impossible to avoid the landslide, assume a fetal position and cover your head. And what are you going to do after the landslide? Of course, number one, stay away from the landslide area. Another landslide could happen, especially if the rain, if it is caused by rain, no, especially if the rain is still there, if it's still raining up until that time. And know if there are casualties or people trapped near landslide areas, and report to proper authorities. Dili pwedeng at mag-char-char lang ka. No? Bahala na kay buhi ko. Okay mo na siya. Okay. So initiate rescue operation if capable. Assist the elderly, women, and children during rescue operations. Of course, very important, listen to the news, listen to the authorities, inspect building foundation and adjacent lots for damages, and do remedial works. And lastly, consult experts on landslides for additional information and advice. You have to assess before you go inside your home and then resume your normal activities. You have to inspect first. Maybe the foundations of your home were very much affected during this event, so you really have to look into the foundations, look into the walls, if there are new cracks or old cracks that have developed further. So you have to, if it would be possible, you will have to call an engineer if your home is still livable, if your home can still withstand weight and pressure. No, all right. So that is basically landslides. Let us proceed to sinkholes. Now, there are many sinkholes here in the Philippines. It's very, very common. Like, for example, there are a lot of sinkholes in Bohol. So this is one in Cambilan, Katigbian. Now, the thing about the sinkholes that are found in Bohol, they're made into like tourist attractions, because the locals will just put a ladder on it, and then there will be like many foreigners that would dare to go down and then swim on the water. Yeah, so it has become a tourist attraction, really. And this is another example of a sinkhole found in Badian. down after storm. So, what exactly is a sinkhole? So, a sinkhole is a natural depression or hole in the surface topography caused by the karst processes or chemical dissolution of what's wrong with my tongue? Carbonate rocks. Okay, so it is caused by exposure to water, erosion, and movement. So basically, sinkholes they're caused by weathering, the weathering of rock and the weathering of soil. So nag-weaken lang jud siya, dili na niya makaya ang weight that is put upon it of the soil, collapse siya. So that is your sinkhole. So what is a karst? A karst is a distinctive terrain developed on soluble rock. It is formed by dissolution of limestone, dolomite, and gypsum by natural waters, and it is also a general term used for unique landscapes like caves, sinkholes, springs, and sinking streams. Now, like this one, if you've been under not under, but if you've been to a cave, I've never been to a cave before. Now that I realize it, but if you've seen like pictures of it, if you've seen videos of people going into caves, you will see these structures. No, that's actually a weakening of the rocks in that area. So nag-weaken siya because of um carbonic acid. So kind siya nag-weaken, so that is actually your cars, and because of that weakening, no, it could affect the rocks where the soil is located on one right here, and it will continue to weaken, and then eventually mukulaps na yun ang soil and rocks at the top of it. Okay, so that's your karst. Now, sinkholes tend to form where there are large deposits of limestones, carbonate rock, and salt beds, which are exposed to circulating groundwater. So, what happens here is that acidic underground water and rainwater dissolve the rocks and form underground passages for water. So, ang water, in addition to water, appeal sa ang carbonic acid. This solution actually promotes chemical weathering of rocks, and with that weathering, no, mag-weak imuhang rocks just like this one right here. No, so ang pinaka ano jud ana, ang pinaka prone ana kay limestones, carbonate rock, and salt beds because they're very easy to dissolve with that combination of water and carbonic acid. So this is what happens. So um first off, we have sediments fall into a cavity. So dana siya mag-collect ang sediments, no? And as spalling continues, the cohesive covering sediments form a structural arc. So kana siya kay nangahulog man ang sediments, mabuslot dayon na siya. And then the cavity migrates upward by progressive roof collapse. So mo continue pa jud ang spalling, so that cavity, that hole will increase in size, and the cavity eventually breaches the ground surface, creating sudden and dramatic sinkholes. So magweaken na siya, labi na kung butangan ni mo bugat na butang dinhi sa taas na mo collapse jud na siya. So this is what happens, no, in the making of a sinkhole. So because of the harmful things that we do to our environment, like for example, when we use a lot of fossil fuels and all that, burn out a lot of fossil fuels. We drive cars using fossil fuels as well. What happens is we have calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate coming in contact with bicarbonate. sorry, sorry, bicarbonate, carbonic acid. Sorry, bicarbonate. Why am I confusing myself? Okay, bicarbonate. And when that comes in contact, when they combine themselves, no, they create calcium ions and um, bicarbonates, no? And this carbonic acid, kani siyang H2CO3. This would break down, further break down into water and carbon dioxide dadto sa ilawom na no. Mo lang kay ng tubig na sa cave, it is acidic. Ang iyang pH is 4.7. And usually, of course, kung acidic rain na siya, no, kung ang iyahang rate ana niya per year is about 50 to 60 inches per year, naana siya ability to dissolve these weak or weaker rocks. And then eventually, kana siya maka harm na siya sa rocks ilawom sa imuhang soil. So una ang soil, then ang rocks dayon eventually, and then mag-form din siya og sinkhole. So there are also other causes to that, no? Aside from the chemical thing, from the chemical cause, you have other causes like vibrations from new construction, di ba? Mag-weaken man na siya. And then the presence of pond, of course, ang water na siya timbang, no, and it will cause pressure. This pressure of standing cause your soil and your rocks underneath to collapse eventually. Or kung ang imong soil is weak, like sands and clays, so they're very weak. So ang water dili siya musip na siya panaog paingon sa weak na nga rocks. So mao na imuhang, or this is basically how sinkholes are formed or made. Now there are many sinkholes here in the Philippines. Ang pinaka controversial ani niya, which happened like a few years ago, no, about the dolomite mining, no. So nahadlok man ang local unit of Cebu City and the province of Cebu kay kung magsigi og mina danhaog ka ng dolomite, maka-cause na siya og very extensive harm, no, na sa medyo sa future pa siya ma-experience, but again we cannot really deny that this is extensive harm. So na paingon ang dolomite, it actually went to Manila Bay. So kadang white sand mo makita da sa Manila Bay. If you ever get the chance to go to Rojas Boulevard in Manila Bay, you would actually see that white sand. And remember, official, it's not harmful because dolomite is norm. Dolomite is a normal thing. It's found in nature. A lot of people were like, oh, dili siya natural, so harmful kay na siya sa dagat. It's normal. It's very natural. But the thing is, the way, or the way it was harvested and it was transplanted is quite controversial in a sense. So that is it for that controversy. And of course, when we talk about like weak rocks, classifying weak and weaker, that we refer to the Mohs hardness scale. Ayan. And remember that this formula right here, Kenisha, uh, actually is the formula that is credited in the formation of sinkholes. This is the chemical weathering process. So, of course, we have the unsa ito kani, we have side coming in contact with water, labi na sa mga caves, dapita, no, it will form carbonic acid, no, and if it comes in contact with calcite, kana mga rocks na very rich in calcium, it will form calcium bicarbonate. So it will break down. So mo na siya. All right. So that is it for landslides and sinkholes. Now let's go to identify the geologic hazard. So please answer. Let's answer together. No, I'll give you like 5 seconds per picture, and you're going to determine what type of geologic hazard it is, or what type of landslide it is. Okay. First, we have this. I'll give you 5 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. So what is it? So if you have answered slump, then you are correct. This is indeed slump. I think it's very Obvious, there's a word there already in the picture. Okay, next. How about this one? I'll give you 5 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. If you have answered creek, then you are correct. It's very obvious, but the way that these posts have bent and the way that these rocks have also bent right here over time, and also you can see the gravestones right there and the fence right there, that is or those are indicative of creep. Okay, next one right here. What is this? I'll give you 5 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. Okay. If you have answered debris slide, then you are correct. Okay. How about this one? Ain't this the same? Oh, okay. It's not the same. Not debris slide, debris flow. Why did I say flow? Okay. Five, four, three, two, one. This is debris flow. If you've answered that, that's these two are the same. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to have confused you. Okay, this one right here. This is very obvious. This is a very obvious photo. So five, four, three, two, one. This is rockfall. And the last one, I'll give you a clue there. There's a volcano. Five, four, three, two, and one. It is mud flow. All right. So that is it. Thank you very much for staying in tune for landslides and sinkholes. Before we end this recording, just orient you on the answer sheet that you're going to answer tomorrow in relation to landslides and sinkholes, but most important, most especially to landslides. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, so you're going to answer this answer sheet right here entitled Landslides. So, in the first part, you're going to insert an image below of a landslide prone area in your barangay or near your barangay. So, you're going to go out. You're going to go out, maglaag mo, pangita mo og area nga dool sa inyong balay or kung dili dool sa inyong balay, dool sa inyong barangay. Ma'am, kanang wala may lugar diri ma'am oy nga prone sa landslide, naa lagi na siya. Believe you me, naa. So dili pwede nga walay answer, walay picture dili. No, dili pwede. Pangitag pamaagi na naamoy picture, okay? And then kindly write the complete address of this area, this siya dapit, and then try to see approximately how many people are living near this area in this direct vicinity. Approximately lang, kung pila imong maihap. Let's say for example, sa usa ka balay na ay 5 ka tao. So imo lang ihapon pila ka buo ka balay imong makita, and then you can have an approximate number. And then part two, answer the following questions in not more than 2 sentences. Okay, not more than 2 sentences. First is, what measures could be taken to this location so that a possible landslide can be prevented or mitigated? What are your possible answers? There are many. You can research on that. You can refer to the recording, this recording right here. Second is, what would be the possible effects living near here if a landslide will ever happen? No? So unsa yung ma-imagine unsa from the things that you've learned so far, unsay mga sa imong ma-imagine na most likely to happen if likely to happen to these people if na ay landslide na mahitabo danha. And not forget to type in your name, section, date, my name, who am I, and then the address of that barangay, okay? notice in the past submissions ninyo nga pirmi ninyo gakalimtan ang address, no? How would I know is correct kung wala ko kabalo asa dapit ni siya dapita? Okay? So that is all. Thank you very much again for staying in tune. And please answer this answer sheet tomorrow asynchronously online gyapon ta, no? And then on Wednesday, I will not be around again because I will still be on the same errand that I have to do. And this is face to face now. So another teacher will be handling you. So all you have to do during that day, during this Wednesday, is just to answer the short quiz on landslides and sinkhole. Right. So that is it. Thank you very much to all of you for staying in tune. And I'll see you again in our next face to face class. And I'll be orienting you on your student learning program or your immersion um, for April 14. Mm-mm, that's the date. Okay, so that is all. Thank you very much and see you around. Goodbye.